everybody, Miss Rachel here with iCode Academy today. We are going to be talking about our E&M or Evaluation and Management leveling tools, or our audit tool, documentation training guide. Essentially, it's all the same resource for coders, even though it might have some different names. So let's get started. First, we're going to talk about how can I find it. So let's go to our internet browser and type in E&M, so Evaluation and Management Leveling Tools. We want to make sure for the purposes of learning that we are sticking with the official guide by CMS. So here you can see we have an Evaluation and Management Documentation Training Tool, and that is by ngsmedicalcare.com. So once you click on the link, download the document. That's the one that we're going to be working with today. So here you can see what the first page looks like. It is a total of 6 pages long. Again, we want to make sure that we are addressing and utilizing the tool that is recognized by not only NGS, but Medicare as well as CMS. And the very first page here is going to address the entire history of the evaluation and management coding. So when you're going through here as a coder, you can see that we can appropriately mark off and count for not only HPI, but our review of systems as well as past family, social, and medical history. The second page is going to be for our examination. Here it reflects not only body areas, but organ systems. And we do have the 4 examination levels reflected at the bottom. So our problem focused, expanded, problem focused, detailed, and comprehensive. And it gives details for those various 4 levels depending on the 1995 or the 1997 guidelines that you are going to be utilizing. All right, so here we got 95, 97, and then again the 4 various levels. The third element, medical decision making, or MDM. This is going to take up 2 pages as there's a lot of details to go into when it comes to counting out or leveling your medical decision making based on the documentation. The first area here is going to be our problems. So let's say for the purpose of discussion, we have a patient who has an established problem, but it's worsening. So here we want to make sure we are counting that or attributing it properly to the tool. So that is 1 problem there worth 2 points. And our overall score is 2 when it comes to the patient's problems. Moving down to the bottom box, we have the amount or complexity of data. So let's say the provider orders some labs. Those are worth 1 point, gives us a grand total of 1. And moving on to the risk of complications or morbidity of mortality. When you're going through the documentation, you want to make sure that you're either circling, highlighting, drawing an X through whatever is appropriate for the specific encounter you're working with. So let's stick with the same encounter and say the provider has ordered some labs as well as wrote a prescription, and we have 1 or more chronic illnesses with mild exacerbation or progression of the side effects. So here you can see that we're kind of all over the place as far as minimal and moderate risk. So which one do we want to be choosing? As always, let's make sure we're reading instructions on our documentation training tools or leveling tools. And it says here that, again, this table does not contain all specific instances. These are just common scenarios, and this is to be used as a guide. What we want to do to determine the overall measurement of the risk is circle the highest level. So between our minimal and moderate, the highest level is going to be the moderate. So that's the one we're going to give the provider credit for. Down at the bottom, we have a table that allows us to count or document appropriately and tally up our final results. So what we're going to do is take the numbers from box A, B, as well as the risk from box C to get our overall type of medical decision making. So remember, in box A, when we talked about the diagnoses, we had a total of 2 points. Box B, where we had the order of labs, we had 1. And the table up above, which determines our overall risk, is considered moderate. When you read the instructions, which are located on the document off to the right-hand side, we can see where it says draw a line down the column with 2 out of 3 circles. Well, here we don't have one with 2 or 3. We have 3 different columns with 3 different responses. So what we want to do is make sure that we are drawing a line down. According to the instructions, it says the second column from the left. Essentially what that means is out of your 3 circled, checked off, or highlighted areas, you're going to pick the one in the middle. So that's going to give us an overall medical decision making of low complexity for this encounter. All right, then we're going to look at the next page here. Page 5 is going to reflect the time option. So if you are able to answer yes to all 3 of these questions, you may be able to bill based on time instead of the history, exam, and medical decision making for the particular counter you're coding. So you want to make sure the documentation does reveal the total time, as well as reflecting or describing the content of the counseling and coordination of care. So what that means is giving details. If a provider says, I spent 50 minutes with a patient in counseling and coordination of care, but doesn't elaborate whether that was regarding weight loss management or how to appropriately use a new medication, then it would not meet the requirements. And you want to make sure that the documentation also reflects or reveals that more than half of the time was spent in that counseling and coordination of care. One thing I want to add kind of as a little tidbit or a tip for coders is depending on the organization you work for, most organizations, if you are able to bill on time, and let's say that time code as far as E&M is concerned is a 99213, but the exam, HPI, and medical decision making is a 99214. Well, which one do you bill for? Most of the time, policies and procedures within an organization is going to reflect that you bill whatever is most advantageous or the most beneficial to the provider. So we don't want to penalize the provider that they were able to complete an encounter quickly, even though the medical necessity as far as the HPI exam and medical decision making reflects a higher level of service. So something to just keep in mind. You can see here the bottom of the page then does have charts for you regarding the various levels of service. So depending on whether it's a inpatient or an outpatient encounter, if it's a new or an established patient, we can see the various E&M code options, as well as the final page reflecting for nursing facility care and home visits or rest homes. I also have a link here for you, and this is available within the official NGS and CMS evaluation and management documentation training tool. So the one that we just Googled, these resources are also available. So if you have questions or additional things that you need some more information on, let's make sure we're always going back to our CPT handbook or our manual. Also looking up the evaluation management service guide and the 1995 and 1997 guidelines as far as evaluation and management services are concerned. That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks so much. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.